So this video is going to focus on using a camera and also exporting out our images, so rendering them out. If you notice, I do have a scene already. I'm going to press the play button. It's a really simple animation. So we have our main character, the angry bird, and he is doing a really quick squashes stretch jump. Yeah, so I'm going to set all of this up, moving my timeline. I'll move it back to the first frame, just so it makes a little bit more sense. The other thing I'm going to do here is hit the spacebar so I can kind of see my four panels. And yeah, this will be a pretty good setup. I'm going to drop off a camera in here. So we're going to go to create cameras and then choose just a basic camera. That'll be sufficient for this activity. What you notice is as soon as it does that, your camera is going to show up pretty much in the center of your grid. The other thing we're going to do here is we're going to utilize this space, which is usually where we see the perspective view, and make that the point of view of the camera. Yeah, so you notice our camera one just got created in our outliner. We're going to go to panels, go to perspective, and now you see in there we also have camera one listed as well. I'm going to click on it just so we can see exactly what the camera's seeing, which is apparently not a lot. However, we're gonna looks like we're pretty zoomed in. We can kind of see the bottom of the tail. I think this is the bird right here. All right, so to kind of get a better framing, hard to do any worse, but to get a better framing of our character, I'm gonna make sure the camera's selected, and we'll bring this out. Yeah, so I'm gonna kind of bring this out, and you'll notice it is going to be reflected. Yeah, even though I'm moving in my side view, it's going to be reflected in our camera view, which is super helpful. The other thing I'm going to do is kind of bring the camera up a bit, just so your bird is framed up a little bit better. One of the cool things with cameras is that we can actually directly show exactly what is in frame when we are doing our exports. I'm going to go back to my camera one menu, my camera one panel. I'm going to go to the view menu, choose camera settings, and then over here, if you select the resolution gate, yeah, what that'll do is it'll show you exactly what would end up being exported. Yeah, which is a little bit, gives you a lot better idea of your boundaries. Okay, now one thing you'll notice over here is it'll give you your resolution. So right now it's I think it's HD 540 HD. We're gonna change that up, so you can go into your render setting, which is this button over here. Okay, so that's the clapper with the gear. Right now I'm on a renderer. I'm going to keep all of that, but the one thing I'm going to end up changing, yeah, so I'm scrolling to the bottom of this particular window on my render settings. For the presets, I'm just going to switch it to HD 1080. Yeah, so, and then go ahead and click on close. Okay, just so like when I'm rendering it out, it looks a little bit better. We will be back to your render settings in a bit as well. All right, so now it's going to be the test. If you can make sure that the camera one is the most active, so I'm going to go to that panel and click in there someplace. Okay, and then what I'm going to do here is kind of frame things up. Yeah, so I'm noticing as I'm moving, making sure that he stays in frame, and immediately he jumps out. Yeah, so he does jump out of frame. So if that's the case, I know already that I'm going to have to reframe this. So I'm going to kind of find him at his peak height. Okay, and then from there, with the camera, just kind of pull back a little bit, and then yeah, pull back and just make sure that we can still kind of see him. Yeah, so maybe drop him off right over there. Yeah, so give him a little bit of headspace and maybe a little bit more back. All right, now the main thing is to make sure that so I'm gonna click back in camera one, but the camera one panel, but the main thing I'm looking for is that he stays in frame the whole way, which is kind of working for me like that, something like that. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so that'll set me up pretty well for that camera. Yeah, now if I'm ready to export this out, what I can then do is go into my render settings again. Okay, and then I'm going to set it up by setting up our sequences. Yeah, so over here, if you take a look at the image format, it is set to EXR right now. I'm gonna switch that to like a JPEG format. You can switch it to PNG or something like that. The other thing is to make sure that I'm not just doing one frame. Yeah, I do want to render all 60 of these frames. Yeah, so if you look at the timeline, it is 60 frame animation. I'm then going to go to where it says frame animation extension, and instead of having it at name single frame, I'm going to switch it to name number dot extension. So name number dot extension. Yeah, and this will give us a lot of it'll allow us to number all of these out. Frame padding is important because that'll give us extra zeros, so it'll stay in sequence even when we're looking at it in our Finder, or in our in our file folders. Okay, as far as frame range goes, you notice now all of a sudden these are active. I'm going to change your end frame. So I needed 60 frames. So I'm going to change that to 60. Okay, my renderable camera, I'm going to switch this to camera 1. Keep this in mind. We may have to change this again later anyway. And then the last thing is we did already change to HD 1080. Yeah, so that's all of our setup right there. Again, the main things that we looked at was image format, yeah, switching that to JPEG or PNG, changing frame animation extension to name number extension, frame padding, putting that at 4. I believe that's the default. That's super helpful though. Start frame, end frame, yeah, put that information in, and then we'll change our renderable camera to the camera that we just created, and then our presets, just keep the HD by 1080. Upon finishing that, I'm going to click on close. Okay, and then I'm ready to now export out my scene with any lighting and anything in there. So to do so, I'm then going to go into render, into my rendering menu. Yeah, you're probably going to actually be in your modeling menu, most likely, or maybe your animation menu. But yeah, if you can make sure you're in rendering, we're then going to go to render, and we're gonna choose this option right here. So where it says render sequence, I'm gonna click on the settings on here, but the main thing that I'm looking for is to make sure that the current camera is set to camera 1, which it is. Everything else looks all good. So then I'm gonna do a render sequence and close. Yeah, now one of the cool things with this is like we can kind of see it render in real time. Those are some harsh shadows, but yeah, so if you notice, like, it's rendering out each of these frames. The other cool thing is if you go to your if you go to your Finder or your folders, if you go into documents, Maya, projects, default, and then jump to images, you'll see it actually dropping in real time. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. All right, so we're gonna let this run. There's not a lot going on in this scene, so it's a quick render. Just be aware, like, the more lighting that you have and the more lights that you have and the more active your environment is, the longer that the more crowded your environment is, the longer this render process is going to take. Yeah, so particularly if you're in Arnold. Yeah. Okay, all right, so it's rendering. We're gonna kind of let that all kind of pull through, see how that looks. All right, so it looks like our render is completed. We can take a look at it in our Finder. Here's our list of renders. Okay, so they've all been done. Now what we can do here is we can kind of like consolidate it. So usually it's best to create a new folder. And then I'm just gonna put this as front view. And then what is it? A bird. Jump, yeah, and that should be good. Okay, I'm then going to move all of these images into there. Okay, and then this is going to be importable into any kind of editing software. Yeah, so After Effects, Premiere, Final Cut, all active for that. Okay, so that's my first setup. I'm then gonna kind of move this out of the way. Okay, all right, now we can also set your camera to do movement. So right now we do have camera one. This one's just gonna be a static shot. In fact, I can go in here and kind of rename this, so this will be static front. The other thing we can do here is we can create a moving camera. Yeah, so same kind of a similar process. Again, I'm going to keep it simple, so we're going to go create cameras and keep the basic camera in here. Okay, once again we have our same setup as before, where it shows up right in the middle of the character. This new camera, what I'm gonna call this is, we're gonna call this the side pan camera. Yeah, so we'll have it like pan with the character. Okay, to set that up, now that we've named that camera, is we can now go to our panel that used to be perspective, now became our camera one, or static front camera. I'm gonna switch that into panels and then choose this and switch it to side pan. Obviously a really good idea to, every time you create a new camera, to like name it. Yeah, all right, now this one is going to definitely be from the side, so I'm going to utilize my top view a lot more. First thing I'm going to do is use the move tool to bring the camera out. This will feel very similar to what we did with your static front camera. This time though, I kind of want to have it going from the side, so I'm going to actually bring it out a bit. And then I'm gonna go into my rotation. Yeah, now rotation is very tricky. You want to be careful about especially if like in your perspective view or in your camera view. You don't want to like have rotations on too many of these. Yeah, so for our purposes, right now we're just gonna focus on rotating in Y. Yeah, so we're just rotating in Y. So the way to make sure that you're only rotating in Y is to select this circle right over here and rotating it that way. Okay, and you'll notice that only the rotate Y will change. All right, so we got our rotation. Trying to find a good angle here. I kind of like this right here. That looks pretty good. The other thing is I'm going to use my front view, yeah, just to change the composition of it. Yeah, so now we have a neater like kind of side view. That's pretty cool. So the angle is looking good. We're gonna go to your side pan and then just go to view, camera settings, and set up our resolution gate. So again, we see exactly what is going to be exported out, framed up and everything. It looks like we could do a little bit better composition with this, so I'm actually gonna try to rule of thirds it a little bit. So maybe around here. This is also going to give him some headspace to be able to like jump. Yeah, so if you notice, I'm just kind of angling on here. Obviously for whatever animation you're doing, it's gonna you're gonna change it accordingly. Yeah. All right, now the good thing about cameras is, of course, you can keyframe them. Yeah, so I'm gonna go to my first frame with the side pan camera selected and hit the S key to lock that in. I'm then gonna make sure that my side pan is the one that's active, so clicking in that frame and then kind of moving it. Yeah, so I want to make sure that the bird stays in frame. Yeah, one of the cool things we can do, yeah, is if you notice with the side pan, yeah, so I'm keeping that selected, is that the bird kind of stays very much in place for quite a bit. So I'm going to kind of drag it until right before he starts jumping, and then I'm going to hit the S key to kind of lock that in. So between 1 and 28 looks like I'm not going to have any movement of the camera. Okay, however, when I get to this portion right over here, yeah, I do want to make sure that the camera kind of follows. So I'm finding the peak kind of looks like it's about at 36 for me. From there, I'm just going to kind of follow the bird a little bit. Let's have it jump up. And then I'm also going to kind of have that maybe push back a little bit. Yes, if a kind of a cool angle. Then hit the S key on there. Okay, and then last but not least, I'm going to check to make sure I see where it lands. So that's going to be right there. Okay, and then right over here for sure, camera needs to be a lot lower. Yeah, so I'm going to find that spot. Looks like it lands here. Okay, and so to again make sure that that's good, side pan, S key. I'm gonna bring the camera down, and then also maybe move the camera back a little bit. Yeah. Okay, so he'll still keep his kind of rule of thirds going over there, and then that'll be his landing. All right, so we can kind of take a look, play this through. Yeah, and that should set that up. Okay, and yeah, definitely looks like I didn't keyframe my last side pan. So let's get to that one, 47. Yeah, so I didn't hit the S key to lock that in. So I'm gonna bring this down. And then in the top view, bring this back a little bit. Okay, and then hit the S key to lock that in. And then make sure that this looks okay. Yeah, so you can kind of jump in. Okay, and super simple. Again, now we just have a camera that kind of moves with your character. Yeah, but we're kind of keeping him on that that axis on the for the rule of thirds. Yeah, on the left in the left side. So it looks like we're ready to export this out. So I'm gonna once again make sure my rendering menu is active. We're then gonna go back to render, and then we're gonna choose the ScoreNX to render sequence. The reason why we're doing this is just to make sure that we're switching out our camera. So right now it is set to static front, which is the previous camera, right? Switch it to our side pan instead, and super simple. We can then render sequence and close, and then we will get our chance to do our render view, and we get to see this all in action. So that should be pretty cool. All right, and our render is set. All right, so now I'm in After Effects. I'm going to import in my footage. So of course, do make sure that you do have your project all set up. I'm going to drop a new composition in mine, and this will just be Angry Bird jumps. Okay, so that should be good. I'm gonna double check on my presets, but I did export out at 1920 by 1080, so that's pretty good. 24 frames per second, that should all be good. Last thing is I'm just gonna change up my duration, so I'll probably put this at let's go with 30 seconds. Yeah, that should be good. Actually, I'll just go with 10. Won't even need that much, but yeah, everything should be good on here. I like it. I'm gonna click on OK, and then I do have my my frame in here. I'm gonna import in my video, so you can go File, Import, choose File. This is file, import and file, and then I do have my two sequences here. I'm going to start off with my front view bird jump and select just the first image in the sequence. Yeah, so there's my first JPEG. If you notice, enabled over here, it's all acceptable files. It automatically recognizes that it is a JPEG, so the format is going to set up here. Okay, the important thing here is to make sure that importer JPEG sequence is checked. Yeah, so if it checks that, it's actually going to consolidate all these JPEGs into a nice little image sequence for you. So let's go ahead and test that out. I'm going to click on open. Okay, and then what you notice over here is now we have like a image sequence, yeah, of JPEGs. Yeah, so that'll be 1 through 60. Now one thing that may cause a little bit of an issue is that you'll notice that the frame rates are a little bit different here. Yes, the composition set at 24. In Maya, when we're exporting out footages, it also is 24 frames per second. However, if you take a look at this footage, the default is coming in at 30 frames per second, which is a little bit which will cause a little bit of an issue. So to remedy that, we're just going to right click on this image sequence. If you can then go to interpret footage and choose main. Yes, interpret footage and then choose main. From there, we're then gonna go down to where they assume this frame rate is at is set, and the default is going to be 30. I'm going to switch that to 24. We can kind of use all of the rest of these settings. Yeah, so as long as you change the frame rate, you should be good. So you can click on OK. As soon as you do that, you'll notice now your footage has switched to 24, just like your composition. Yeah, so it'll match up really nicely. What you can then do is click on your Angry Bird image sequence, and you can drop it off right into your scene. Yeah, so I'll drop that off right here. Okay, and then go ahead and play it. And then now I have my image sequence all placed together. Don't have to worry about the individual images. Yeah, so that looks good. I can also repeat that process for the other one. Yeah, so if I want to do some editing, kind of splice between the different clips, same process, right? File, import, file, side pan, bird jump, click on that first JPEG, make sure that format is imported JPEG, make sure that imported JPEG sequence is set, go click on open, and here's another image sequence for myself, so I can drop that off now right over here, and now I have sequence 1 and 2. Whoops. You notice the length of it, so the settings are a little bit weird, and the reason why is because I didn't switch the frame rate. Yeah, so I'm going to right click on here, go to interpret footage, go to main, switch that up to 24, and when I drop it off into the timeline, you're going to notice at that point, okay, now the lengths are about the same. Yeah, but that's about it. So there's our first sequence, there's our second sequence. It's looking good. Looks like I can kind of take it from here and do editing, but yeah, that's basically the process of exporting out your footage and dropping them off into your editing software and creating an image sequence.